Sanders with a clean pocket, looking deep for Shepard, and it is a diving catch. Oh, Will Shepard,
Jackson, number 7. He thinks.
Yo, what's up, guys? My name is Oliver Hayes, and I'm here with
Harrison Simeon, and this is episode 5 of the SportsCast. Today, we talked to Jack Carlough of Colorado Buffaloes Wire and a former Scobo Sports, at the time Buff Sports Live member. And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, so my name's Jack Carlough. I graduated from CU Boulder in 2022 with a journalism degree. First of all, it's just growing up. I'm from Boulder, grew up in Boulder, but went to high school in Longmont at Silver Creek. Played baseball there, and that's really kind of as my baseball career was winding down. I guess that's when I knew that I kind of want to get started in sports media. So, went to CU fall of 2018 and just really just like immediately immersed myself in just the CU sports media environment there. Started with Buff Sports Live, which is now Let's Go Buff Sports, which podcast I'm on now, which is kind of crazy. Just yeah, just seeing how the program has evolved since I guess 2018 when I started. Yeah, especially since I guess Coach Prime arrived, just seeing how much it has grown in like the past 2 years alone. Um, but yeah, I started with the Buff Sports Live that fall and then joined the CU Independent that fall as well. And I think that's when I learned like I really wanted to get more into writing opposed to more of the multimedia stuff that Buff Sports Live was only doing back then. But still got to host a few shows. That was cool. Did like a few packages, stuff like that. I guess that was Coach McIntyre's last season, so that was kind of fun. Um, and then I guess after that, I landed a writing gig with the Left Hand Valley Courier, which is based out in Iowa. I guess that was my first real writing job. I'm still doing them now, just it's a weekly newspaper. Um, then later, I was named the sports editor of the CU Independent. Um, did that pretty much after my freshman year. Um, Other roles I've had, I worked for the Boulder Collegians for a little bit there. After my freshman year, doing like multimedia work with them and writing kind of recaps, stuff like that. Um, yeah, I think that was everything. Also writing for Boca Preps now, so I've kind of been all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You really dove head first into all the media here and especially writing. Was the CU Independent for you like kind of your introduction to journalism, or did you know you maybe had a passion for writing before school?
Um, Probably before school, I guess. I guess it was kind of always my dream to be like a Rockies beat writer. I think that was kind of my goal, and I guess still is in a way, even though I found other passions with, covering college and high school athletics. Um, yeah, I know I just think I'm probably better behind a computer than in front of a TV or a TV camera or whatever like that. Um, but yeah, and then the more as I got more and more involved in the CU Independent, yeah, just that really it just confirmed that writing was kind of my main passion there.
So I guess this one will kind of be a two-parter question in a way. But like when we talked with Scott last week, he was talking about how he's only been here for 10 months, and we were kind of, talking about for us, getting into this youth sports scene, we're kind of in a similar boat. But for you, obviously, being here since 2018 and growing up closer than I did. Um, what has it been like for you to see the evolution of Colorado sports and then also just the media side of things as well after being in the space for so long?
Yeah, I guess with CU sports in particular, main programs I've covered. With basketball, I mean, obviously with J.R. Payne and Tad Boyle, like that hasn't really changed a ton. I mean, they've just been consistently good. And at least with the women's program, I've seen that rise. That's been really cool to watch. Because they were not very good my freshman and even sophomore years. Seeing that rise, just keeping it with basketball was probably one of the coolest things I've seen. Like being during the COVID year when they upset Stanford, and it was like me and Brian Howell with the Daily Camera were like the only people who watched it, which was crazy. Because yeah, it was obviously a massive, massive moment for that program. Um, Football, of course, going through, I guess Dion would be my third head coach. I guess McIntyre, Durrell, or Tucker, Durrell, I guess fourth head coach. That program, yeah, I've just seen so much change every couple of years. And obviously, right now we're going through the biggest evolution that this program has really ever seen. Um, yeah, in terms of media, yeah, obviously with Coach Prime, it's just grown and grown and grown. Like press conferences used to be like, I don't know, like five or six local beat writers, and now that room is just like packed every single day, like no matter who's talking, pretty much. Um, yeah, that's been the craziest thing. Just seeing more and more like even like reporters from Denver and like you're talking about Scott a little bit too. Like I never would imagine that like the Fort Collins, Coloradan would have a beat writer covering CU, but it's like what you have to do now just because there's so much attention going towards that program.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of jumping off of that. I asked Scott last week about this, but it may be different when you've covered and been around campus for so long. What have been some of the challenges that you've seen as, a lot of that attention has risen within the football program and still being able to get to like media availability, like I saw you at yesterday and going to all the games. What are the challenges that you've been able to overcome to still be, going strong and writing for so many publications too?
Yeah. Um, I guess with like the current media environment at CU, I've just had to like adjust to the infiltration of national media members, like being a regular at least games. Um, but it's also been really cool getting to know some of those national guys. Like I always see like Oliver chatting up one of the national guys, which is cool. Which is it's so good for you guys, especially just being around some of those big names. Like from The Athletic, ESPN, USA Today. Like they always send their national writer, which is really cool. But yeah, also like giving them space to, because they're on, strict deadlines and, giving them space to ask their questions. Knowing that, we're around this program a little bit more and have more access during the week because we're actually in Boulder. Um, I guess that's kind of been a big adjustment, but a good one for sure. Um, and yeah, I guess appreciative of, the sports information staff, still allowing me access. I know Buffalo's Wire isn't like the biggest outlet out there, but I've been covering the team a long time, and I appreciate that. They've uh, been generous with their time and what they allow for media members.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't really want to take like Harrison's question, I guess, because we kind of talked about this beforehand. But obviously, like you posted the clip yesterday of your interaction with Coach Prime, and as you mentioned, that's like a often a common occurrence at these press conferences now. What's it kind of been like after Jack Carlough got famous, and then I guess now kind of having this not like reputation, but just knowing that this is kind of going to be a thing that follows you.
Yeah. I guess I like started probably like my junior or senior year when I think I was in like a group project with like two girls in some class. Like, hey, I'm like Jack Carlough. I don't know why I said my last name. I think I had to, or they asked for it. And they looked at me all weird, like Jack Harlow, like what? Because I kind of even like look like maybe a little bit. He has like a little curlier hair, but I think we look a little similar in a way, but with football, it's just because like the way I pronounce my name, I don't mean to do this, but I say it like really fast, like Jack Carlough, which sounds like Carlo. Sometimes I need to remember to slow down and say Carlo. Um, but I think it was like maybe Shiloh who I think he had like a little giggle when I asked a question once, which I'm cool with it. I get it. It's funny. Um, but I think it can only be good for me in a way, just that attention. I just need to find a better way to like I don't want to say like market it, but get it out there more. And even that tweet, like, yeah, just totally blew up yesterday, which was funny to watch. Everyone replying with like Jack Harlow gifs and memes and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I'm cool. I like the attention. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, that's cool. I remember for a few times where I didn't know who you were at the time, and I would go to a press conference and you'd ask a question and I'd have to take a double take.
Yeah.
But in your time with Buff Sports Live and then Skill Buff Sports, what were some of the lessons you learned that maybe have helped you become a journalist now? And even though it hasn't been, too long since you graduated, what were some of the things that you feel transferred the best from your time with Skill
Uh,
Buffs?
yeah. Obviously work ethic. I think that you guys are learning that now too, just the importance of that and trying to go to as many practices and games as possible. Um, really important as a student. Getting to know some of the actual professionals and like developing relationships with them is really important. Yeah, I think I learned that pretty early on with Buff Sports Live. And also like learning how to be a professional. Um, I think one of my like first packages with Buff Sports Live, I think they had me do a man on the street. Do you guys still do it? I think you guys still do something like that. I know like Jimmy did last year. Um, I think I did a man on the street and I wore like a CU hat. You guys get that a lot with a freshman, I know, or they're all like decked out in like CU gear. They don't really get that. That's not super professional, I guess, because we're students, but you also want to be um, professional and yeah, approach work with an unbiased kind of mindset. I think the guy who was running Buff Sports Live back then and said, "Don't." He just very sternly told me, "Don't do that again. Don't wear a CU hat," because they taught us to be professional and even though we are students, that it's important to um, yeah, just have that unbiased approach.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely something like I don't know. We see like yeah, just all the time. I mean, even from yeah, there's just times where even when you're just talking as a student, like on this podcast, where I don't know, we mess up and say we when referring to the team as if we're a part of the fandom. So that's kind of just yeah, something that we're learning as you keep saying.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess kind of I don't know. Harrison kind of already like asked this, I guess, but I don't know. I guess nowadays, like, what is like a common day like I don't know like look like for you as far as dealing with I don't know just so many different teams
Yeah.
and also just working like multiple gigs like in the past.
I guess yeah, it's important to like set a routine as much as possible because sports don't really allow you to have much of a route. I mean, they do, but like in terms of like game times on the weekends and because like CU could be playing anywhere from like 10 a.m. to 8 at night, as we've seen. Um, but especially during football season, I feel like I've gotten a good routine of, Monday getting out as many articles as possible, Tuesday going to the press conference, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, um, I can, kind of prep for the game, get as many preview stories out as possible. Um, and then during the week, at least this fall, I've been doing like one or two high school events, usually in the afternoons for BOCO preps. Like last night, I did a boys soccer game at Peak to Peak High School in Lafayette. Um, which is honestly like probably like the funnest part of my week is getting to go to those high school events because they're like you have to be like fully immersed and taking like really good notes because there's no stat broadcast for high school games. That's probably my favorite part of um, journalism is covering high school events and even like the interviews you do there, totally different than college. Um, and then weekends, Saturday, yeah, obviously full on CU. Um, Sunday, you do like game recap stuff, and that's also typically when I usually do a 1 week. Once a week, I do a student athlete of the week profile for the Left Hand Valley Courier. So I kind of have to plan that throughout the week and do my best to land an interview, whether it's virtually or in person. So I just have, just sticking with that routine is really important.
Cool, cool, cool. I'm wondering what my day-to-day life will be like soon with all the writing gigs I'm starting to get. But
It's
I
once you graduate, like everything gets
yeah.
like you put like 100% focus into writing, and it's a fun life, I think. Yeah, I'm lucky.
Yeah. So unless Oliver had any more non-football related questions, since that's the team you ever like, I guess we're all following it the closest right now. But Oliver, did you have any more to add?
Yeah, I guess the last one I wanted to ask you was just like I don't know, obviously you've taken a heavy like emphasis onto writing. Um but like I don't know, in this changing state of journalism and also just being like I don't know, it's crazy like that I don't know, that you're a professional and that you're also so like close in age to me. Like you're literally the age of my brother, like graduated the same year as he did from CU. Like that's just wild to me. But anyway, you know, with the emphasis on writing, how have you kind of learned to adapt to this kind of new age of journalism? How do you think you might expand in the future, or how do you think you might make like your writing stand out from everyone else's?
Yeah. I guess with me specifically, I'm kind of in a weird position where I have to like, because I write for three different outlets mainly. It's like, and each one of them I have to write with kind of a different tone. And I have to be aware of like the audience I'm writing for and where it's going to be um, published. So like the way I write in like Boco Preps is a lot different than what I write on Buffalo's Wire. Just knowing that it's going to be in print most likely. And with Buffalo's Wire, I definitely think that those types of websites will continue to grow and be more common. Because I know like Sports Illustrated, they have a website kind of similar to ours. Um, Seems like so many of those national outlets are starting to have like team websites, like team specific websites. I kind of see that continuing to grow as long as they find out the best revenue model. Um, that's, I guess, the biggest thing right now with journalism is finding the best revenue model, whether it's subscription or just free and then having advertisements. But as long as that keeps going on the right track, I think online media is just going to keep growing.
Yeah, and I guess just as like a follow-up, like I don't know, does that influence you at all as far as I don't know, kind of how you attack work in a way? Obviously, like you're gonna produce the best content that you're gonna produce, but when you have to write a headline, and you have to, think about, stuffing, keywords at the front and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
how do things like that kind of, impact you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. I mean, with Buffalo's Wire, we are, paid by page views. Which I mean, a lot of sites similar to ours kind of operate similarly. Um, so that definitely forces you to put a lot of emphasis on SEO. I try my best. I don't like, with Coach Prime, it's so easy to write just like a clickbaity headline. Um, I don't like, I like to think that I model my writing more off of what, guys like Brian, Pat, and Adam are doing. I would like to model what, kind of what they do. 'Cause I do not enjoy, clickbait type of stories. Even though those will get the most page views, unfortunately. Um, but moving forward, as like I get older and older, I know that as the internet continues to grow, that people who have strong SEO skills are going to be really valued, I think, um, moving forward, just because if that revenue model continues to grow um, with page views, then yeah, just having a good SEO skills is important.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like I don't know. I think honestly like I could ask enough questions about SEO and just that kind of side of things to fill up like the whole podcast. But I know that people care about football. As you
Yeah.
mentioned in that that answer and
I
previous
guess like
ones.
it's hard with like football and basketball too, just to add on to that. Because basketball, I probably enjoy covering that more just because um like the personalities of the players really get to shine and you can kind of get to know them better because there's only like 15 guys in football, it's way more. Um but yeah, at the same time, like we have to be I got to keep my bosses happy with what we cover because they're also page view dependent. Um yeah, it would be nice to see if basketball continue to grow though.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that's like always on my mind because like I don't know, for me like basketball is like I don't know my sport. Like that's just the the sport above all others that I love, and it's like I put my heart and soul into all my basketball stuff, and I do it like the same with football, but I just don't know it as well. So I know my basketball content is far better, and it's just odd when a 5 second video of like Terrell Owens and Travis Hunter all of a sudden gets 1.5K likes, and my article gets like 100 views, and it's like, oh, okay. On
Yeah.
the basketball side of things, it's definitely very interesting to see you know, yeah, just trying to, find a path, but also produce the things that you want to produce.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess going forward, I know we want to talk about football and Kansas State obviously coming up this Saturday. I think, Harrison has some questions, so we'll start with him. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean I was just gonna ask pretty generally on your thoughts of the team's prospects so far and uh the state, how you think they stack up.
Yeah, so I guess Kansas State's like at least offensively, it's definitely similar to what CU has faced often this year with a quarterback who can run in Avery Johnson, and then two pretty strong running backs and DJ Giddens and our old friend Dylan Edwards. So if CU's run defense can, perform like they did against UCF. So I feel like there's a lot of similarities between Kansas State and UCF. Avery Johnson's probably a better passing quarterback than what they saw from KJ Jefferson. Um, but yeah, I think the key will be, and some of the CU's defensive coaches talked about this today, will just be keeping Avery Johnson kind of contained. So I think defensive ends and end rushers that they're going to play a really big role. And we're just keeping an eye on Avery Johnson, linebackers as well. If they can keep him contained and keep DJ Giddens, hopefully we'll see, but around 100 yards or less, I think CU has a really good shot at winning because yeah, I think this offense, as it continues to get, as the run game continues to grow, I think they're just going to get better and better and keep scoring, yeah, more and more points.
Yeah, I think no, that definitely makes sense. Like just even looking at the stat sheet, never mind like when you look at the tape. Um, but I don't know. I know this is a glaring like maybe not a glaring question or a glaring like thing to look out for, but expecting the return of Shiloh this week. Um, what do you think that might do to the defense, and how do you think they might shift around Carter Stoutmire and play him going forward.
Yeah. Sounded like Coach Prime will still have Carter Stoutmeyer in like certain packages. Not sure what that's going to look like yet, or we'll find out this weekend, I guess. Um, but with Shiloh, obviously one of the most physical, hard-hitting safeties in all of college football. Um, the key with him is just, yeah, just discipline. And as we saw against like North Dakota State, some of those kind of like late flags. I think he's been called for targeting or at least targeting reviewed plays a few times. We've got to be careful with that. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I think he is probably the second best secondary in this team next to Cameron Stillman and Craig because Cam's just been playing really strong so far this year. So the secondary is not a big concern of mine. I think going into this weekend, I think they're going to be solid, as they have been pretty much all year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I saw on the depth that Stoutmeyer was still listed as the number one free safety, though I don't know how accurate those are.
I wouldn't put too much stock into the
Yeah.
Coach Prime step charts. I think a couple of weeks they weren't even really updated. Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that. I think Shiloh will be out when Kansas State takes its
Yeah.
first snap, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and then also like part of that has been those depth charts have sort of lied about the starting offensive line. And I guess that's my next question, more on maybe the trenches
Yeah.
and how you think, the Buffs have outperformed, I'd say, expectations in the trenches, aside from definitely the Nebraska game.
Mhm.
Um, and what do you make of some of the trench players, some of like the more up and coming like Nikai Hill-Green and the linebacker and the run defense? And how do you think that the offensive line on the other side can keep protecting Shador and maybe adding to the run game that we've seen a little bit of emergence of recently?
Yeah. I think with the offensive line, I think a big shift earlier in the season because Tyler Brown was starting the season at right tackle, and now he's kind of moved over to like left guard. He can also play right guard. I think that's been really important to Colorado's success. Um, and then I guess we saw with yeah, Jordan Seaton's obviously set at left tackle. He had a really good game against UCF. I think he's going to continue to get better and better. We've seen more of Kareem Harden and Philip Houston in recent weeks. I think Houston was listed as the starting right tackle. Yeah, I have it pulled up here. I think he had a pretty decent game against UCF. Hank's been consistent, I guess, at center. Still haven't really seen anything of Yakiri Walker. I would like to see him a little bit. I'm just curious to see what he has, maybe late in games. Um, but yeah, overall, I would say that group is played to expectations or maybe a little bit better. Shador is still taking like, you know, how many sacks does he have on the year now? I think close to 20. He's still like one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the Big 12, which isn't ideal, but
Yeah, I think I saw 18 was the number right
date.
now. Yeah,
Uh,
which is worse than the Big 12.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. But at the same time, like when CU gets into like those second and long, like third and long plays, like you feel like hope is not lost with this offense. Like if it's like third and 12, like I still feel like kind of good about them getting a first down just because of how good their wide receivers are. So like those negative plays like aren't as they don't hurt CU as much as they do other teams that don't have a Shador and Travis.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask about this a little bit later, but I feel like as far as football players I've seen that are non-quarterbacks, I haven't seen a player like Travis Hunter who can impact the game in the way that he does. And so obviously it's like, I don't know, kind of a silly question to be like, where do you think the Buffaloes would be without their best player? But truly, like, I don't know, in the way that he impacts the game, how much do you think he really raises this team's ceiling as far as potential and, what their record could possibly look like if they didn't have, even just one side of him? whether it was the cornerback or wide receiver side.
No, he definitely boosted his ceiling a ton. Last season when Travis got hurt, so he got hurt, yeah, midway through the CSU game. Um, where he missed like 3 games last year. They still won the Arizona State game without him, which, um, obviously Arizona State wasn't super good last year, but, um, and then they lost, yeah, the last 6 games of the season or 7. But yeah, he just raises the bar so high with this team, and obviously having a Heisman favorite, yeah, it's going to help you win a few more games.
Yeah, no, I think, I've talked about how Travis is one of the just the best one of the best athletes I've ever witnessed in person, just in any sport on any level. So, to see him play not just, the amazing sideline catches and the diving interceptions, but also the winning plays like the fumble at the goal line and, stuff that really shows his impact has been, more than worth it
Yeah.
um, for every snap he's taken and how many are left. So I wanted to ask maybe just about Big 12 overall, because after the UCF, a lot of the alarm bells rang off in people's heads about, our chances in the Big 12 because of the lack of a clear, number one team or dominant force. So what do you make of our chances to possibly compete for the Big 12? And do you think that, some of the strengths we saw in UCF are maybe the best we'll see out of CU, or if there's even more to improve?
Yeah, I guess Big 12 is like I did not expect it to be this chaotic, honestly. Um, some of that's with Utah losing Cam Rising too. I think that really kind of shifted some things in the conference. Um, I guess it kind of started with BYU's upset of Kansas State. Um, Still not like totally sold on BYU yet. I don't know. Maybe I need to watch them a little bit more. But even like a team like that being, a top tier team right now just shows like how crazy this conference has been early on. And that definitely helps CU's chances of making it to the Big 12 title game. Because you just have to be the top 2 teams. That's all. It doesn't matter if you're 1 or 2. Um, and the 2 teams that do play in the Big 12 championship game, like I could definitely see it be like a 1-loss team versus a 2-loss team. Like there's a very good chance that happens. And if CU can beat Kansas State this weekend, I mean, yeah, they have. Um, I think their schedule down the stretch is definitely. It seems more manageable now than it did like before the season started. Um, just like games like Oklahoma State, Utah, I guess too. We'll see what they look like once Cam Rising gets back, but Oklahoma State and Kansas, like those were like, games that I think a lot of fans were, scared about, but now they seem, pretty winnable, just 'cause of the struggles that those 2 teams have had. Um, yeah, so I think, yeah, it's there for the taking for sure.
Yeah, and then I guess, going back to Kansas State, I don't know how much like you focused on how much you necessarily focus on, team schedules and like outcomes of games leading up to when they come and play the Buffs. But obviously they haven't really had a lot of close performances this year. Tulane was our closest game, which was a 7 point difference, or I guess, 1 score difference. So how do you think when they haven't had a game that has necessarily been as intense as Colorado's week 1 and week 4 wins were. How do you think that impacts a team when this is kind of expected to be a high it's a highly anticipated match, I guess, with a lot of energy.
Yeah, I think that helps CU a ton, just with, Kansas State's I mean, they're not like an inexperienced team. I mean, Avery Johnson's still a pretty young quarterback. But every time you play in those one score games, I think, yeah, just in terms of experience, I think that just helps so much, going into the next week. Last year, even CU played in almost all their games were like one score, I felt like. Besides, yeah, the Washington State and Oregon games. I think even those really close losses taught this team a lot. Um, just how to manage those kind of late game situations. I think the coaching staff has been a lot better too, in terms of like clock management. Would still like to see a few more run plays late than just tossing it up there. Like I think Shador did against North Dakota State and CSU too. Those weren't great, but um, yeah, I think CU definitely has a big advantage there, in just having experience in playing close games and even like was it like three overtime games in the Coach Prime era so far? Is that right? Yeah, I think that's huge for the Buffs.
Yeah, I remember I wrote a column after North Dakota State just about, and I was pretty critical, but I remember I mentioned just the fact that, getting on the winning side of a close game does so much for a team and it can, feed into a psyche of just like finding a way to win instead of like last year it seemed while they were competitive and they just ended up on the wrong side every time and there were times where they would just almost find ways to lose.
Mhm.
But uh, speaking of wins and losses, we like to do every week for football at least a score prediction segment where we do that and then we'll wrap it up after that. So if you had a score prediction for Colorado against Kansas State, what would it be as of now?
Think. Yeah, I haven't thought of mine yet. I mean, Kansas State's favored by like 4.5, something like that. This game being at home, I think that's huge, huge for CU. I know Folsom Field's going to be pretty crazy Saturday night. Um, both teams are coming off byes, so that kind of cancels out. I think I'm going to go. I'll give CU the nod just because of how much momentum they have right now. I'm going to go like 31-27 Colorado. I think that's fair. Um, I've been impressed by how defense has played the past few weeks. I think they'll keep it going. Um, yeah, as long as they can keep Avery Johnson contained, I think they have a good chance of winning.
Yeah, I mean, I like that score prediction. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't know if I necessarily have CU winning, but either way, I think it'll be a close game. But I guess, I know you're gonna, wrap it up, but it feels like with these Coach Prime games, like every game is that, every coming week seems like the next biggest game of the Prime era. Um, you know, how do you feel like this game kind of what are the implications of this game's outcome on the rest of the season? I guess I know Harrison kind of talked about it, but just kind of what are the expectations and how important do you think this game truly is, and just the general atmosphere as far as Coach Prime's like you know job and if he stays after the season and things like that.
Yeah. Um, I mean, like technically from like a standings perspective, this game's I guess not it's not a must win, I guess, because just with how the rest of their schedule looks. And as I said earlier, it's going to be a one or two loss team probably headed to the Big 12 title game. And this is the hardest remaining game on CU's schedule. So I think as long as they're competitive and it is a one score game, as I think a lot of people are expecting it to be. Um, I think that's really what people are looking for, at least in terms of um, yeah, media members especially. Because I mean, CU is not. I mean, the betting line shows this; they're not exactly expected to win this game. So like, I don't think it's kind of a lose-lose situation. I think as long as they um, play well, I think they continue to gain respect and yeah, Coach Prime's job security is I think it's just fine and. I would expect him to be here next year as well.
I agree, and I think, I've talked about how back against Colorado State, there was not a lot to gain from that game, but there was a lot to lose just because of coming off the huge loss to Nebraska. Now that they're coming off the big win against UCF, there's a lot to gain from this game. And even if they lose, I don't think anyone will be, sounding the alarms again. As reactionary as a lot of the fans have been, and kind of being, and especially the media, and being kind of on the train and then off of it and on again. So, um, yeah, no, that I don't know if I have any more questions to add. I just wanted to add my 2 cents on your response. But
I agree with what you just said there, definitely. More to gain than there is to lose, I guess.
Yeah, because like I don't know, I wasn't thinking anything crazy would happen if they lost, and definitely not like Dion's like job security, but more so just like you know it would be I don't know, every win that they've gotten this season feels like, oh, it's the biggest win of Coach Primera because of how they dominated or how much they won by, or X, Y, and Z. And of course that's a product of what Harrison just touched on and stuff. And so I guess more so it's like you know what does then what happens if they do win this game against a ranked opponent,
Mhm.
and just what comes with that, I guess. um but
yeah, I
yeah,
think part
no.
of what is to gain is expectations, though. So from that point on, you win against K-State, and then the next week it's Cincinnati. You lose to
Arizona.
Cincinnati. That's not looked at.
But yeah, I think it's Arizona and then Cincinnati.
Oh, my mistake. So yeah, you I guess Arizona's fine, but then you later on in the season you have games against a really struggling Kansas team, and as I said, Cincinnati. So you lose to those type of games, then the impact of it is gonna be bigger than if you lose this game to K-State, because the expectations rise and now you're viewed as a top dog in the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree with that. If they win this one, they should be ranked. I'll say that too. Yeah, which is huge for the program, and I think it would be the biggest win of the Coach Prime era, bigger than last week too, just because of how good Kansas State is. Um, yeah, just getting a win against a legit top 25 team. Yeah, I think that'll be huge.
No, but we appreciate us having you on and you joined us for as long as you did. I know we said 20, 30 minutes, and this kind of went more towards the 40-minute, 45-minute range. But we really
As
appreciate that. Yeah, no, as always, every week we have a template, and it goes longer,
The
but
gun thing.
but no, we appreciate you know taking the time and also being like vulnerable enough to dive into some of the like your background and things you've dealt with, as I know some people are a little bit more reserved with those things, but as a journalist you're more likely, I feel like, to kind of be like, oh yeah, I want to give a good answer and give good content, things like that. But yeah, no, I appreciate you having you on. And so yeah, no, it was sick talking to Jack. I mean, it was cool seeing his perspective, and as Harrison mentioned in the intro, and as you guys saw throughout the interview, like someone who has been on pretty much the exact same journey as us, um, but just in a time slightly before. And as I said, like it's crazy that he graduated the same year with my brother from CU. Like that's just, yeah, insane to me when I think about it. Like even more so than when we talk to someone like Scott, just because I know he hasn't always been in Colorado. Um,
Right.
but unless you have any other, comments about football, we could, move on to the other sports and, one horrific game in particular.
I I had one more thing to add, and just the ultimate key to Colorado beating K-State. And maybe I'll go in more in depth on the pregame show, but I think starting fast is the big thing, because we've seen the defense and how they've been able to adjust to different offenses better in the second half. But sometimes it can put Colorado in a hole. So I think the offense starting fast, and also the defense, if they can force a turnover in the first quarter, like what we saw from Preston Hodge with UCF, the interception in the end zone, that sparked that entire game. That set the tone. And so I think for the defense, just forcing one early turnover would be huge. And then for the offense, putting together just one solid drive and it can be the first 20 minutes. And you can, as long as you're not in a multi-score hole at halftime. We've seen them come back against Baylor, but K-State's a different team. They're a completely different animal than essentially every team CU's played this year. So while I still appreciate, all what that's happened with UCF, this is a game that is not, we saw Nebraska be ranked after they beat us, but they immediately kind of fell off the track and are now kind of wobbly between being ranked and being not. So we'll see what happens with them, but this win would be much more impressive than UCF, in my opinion. Much more impressive than essentially. I mean, I'm trying to think back to last year and how many teams that were better than K-State that we played. There was UCF or not USC. I thought UCLA's team was pretty good, but it wasn't spectacular. So I think this would be on par as if we beat a UCLA or maybe an Oregon State last year. And obviously Oregon and USC were the big two, but to defeat a team of the caliber K-State is would be instrumental in any sort of, you know, tangible success Colorado has. Obviously making a bowl game, great, but if they want a chance to win the Big 12, I think starting fast against K-State and then ultimately if they're able to come out with a win would be huge in order to compete for the conference.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree with all that. And I think it will be obviously you want to have a solid offense the whole game, and that's just,
Yeah.
simply not feasible. So I think like, you know, yeah, definitely, getting off to a hot start will be good, but I think it will be, be interesting because like, for most of the season, as we've seen, they've uh, built their offense in the second half or late in the game. But you think back to North Dakota State when they come out, guns a-blazing and score and what was it, like 8 plays in their first 2 drives, like
Right.
combined or whatever it was, and then all of a sudden the offense just like, stopped and was completely stagnant. And it was like, what is going on? And so I think, now that the running game has been a lot more established, it'll be a lot easier to kind of, make sure that the offense doesn't stall as bad as it did in week one and then, obviously in week two. But yeah, no, I think that's a good point, and it will be interesting to see, where CU kind of steps up and really, how they kind of have their way against, this talented Kansas State team as you mentioned. Um but I guess moving into another sport where we saw, a quick start is not always it does not always lead to good things, I guess. Um, so
Hey, I'll go into it, or if you wanted to, you can, because I guess you've been more connected with the team this year. But I was going to add to your point about North Dakota State, that loss or the win, but the reason it was so close and ended up so nip and tuck was because the defense didn't get off to the fast start. It was frustrating, and soccer team did not get off to a fast defensive start. In fact, it was the exact opposite. So even though they scored an early goal, losing 6-1 to TCU is never ideal.
yeah, no, I mean, it was I mean, I'm just more this it's crazy when you have Coach Prime in his situation, you have Travis Hunter and I feel like this is almost the most speechless I've been the whole year. When it's come to kind of CU sports because I mean, when it truly we were kind of lost in that press box. You know, and at a baseball on Saturday just because, you see that Colorado scored in the first like minute and a half or whatever it was. I think it was Emerson Lane. And then all of a sudden by the 6th minute, they're down 3-1. And it's like, I don't know, like, as I've acknowledged, I'm not a big soccer guy. Like I never really have been. And, even more like, I can't even like claim to be I've been a soccer guy. That's pretty preposterous in itself. But like I've never heard of this just avalanche of goals, then it being 5-1 so quickly, and then eventually 6-1 after subbing off all the starters in the second half. It was just absolutely insane to watch, and you know as 30,000 people read on our website, which is
Nearing 40.
nearing 40, I guess. But by far the most viewed article on our website. Shout out to Max Friedel for that article. As he noted, like on scopeofsports.com, obviously. But as he noted, like a lot of the goals were kind of not necessarily scored in the same fashion, but they were produced in the same fashion and set up in the same fashion because they were just, I guess, TCU was being the outside um defenders and just sending it into the box, uh, and kind of, letting what was her name? What was her last name? I know her first name was Seven Castaigne. Yeah. No, I was about to say the whole like letting the rest of the team do the work. Seven Castaigne, she had 4 goals and an assist in that game. So, she of course had quite the stat line. But I mean just in general, like I said, TCU just, had the pace on the outside and had their way. And now Colorado, who's ranked number 14, and who everyone was thinking, oh, they could be top 10 if they beat North Carolina and yada yada yada, is now sitting with I think 4 votes or 5 votes outside of um the top 25 poll right now.
Yeah, no, it was brutal, and just seeing like, and I think part of the biggest reason that this was such a shock and such a speechless moment was that this is a team that whose strength is their defense. It wasn't just like this was any other team and oh, we lost 6-1 to TCU. That just happens, that isn't really something that happens when it's a team who has as strong of a defense as Colorado, as we've seen throughout the first half of the season. And I remember seeing the score and I was like, what happened to Nidus? But it didn't seem like it was Nidus's fault that these were happening. It was simply just lackadaisical defense. And I don't know if it was, if pressure was an aspect and maybe just not being ready to get punched in the mouth by a team that, a talented TCU team that was rolling right along through Big 12 play as well. So I don't know really what to make of it in terms of how we'll play going forward. Hopefully, for Colorado's sake, it's a kind of a fluke, and you just keep moving. That's probably what head coach Danny Sanchez would want to think about it. But if you can't have a game and expect to be in the position that they were just a few days ago before that game. So, that was the highest they had been ranked, or at least tied for the highest they've been ranked ever in program history. And right when you think, oh, we're about to go back up, we're about to give you the highest you've ever been ranked, or about to have an actually super historic season for the program, it's right back down to square one, where you're not in the top 25. You're having to impress everybody else again, but they're going to remember, hey, remember when you gave up 3 goals in 4 minutes to one team? And I think it was like 5-1 by the 25th minute. It was out of hand so quickly that I think just for the team's morale, it's going to be huge to just get back to, keeping clean sheets, because the sheet was about in the dumpster on it was Saturday, correct?
Yeah, Saturday.
So I think you can't think too much of it if you're Colorado, but you've got to just, make sure that those lackadaisical errors that caused 3 goals in 4 minutes don't happen again, and you got to be ready to start fast, like we've said about, for football as well. So starting fast, doesn't just apply to scoring points. It's every phase of the game.
Yeah, and with the talking sheets, I mean, it just reminds me of when Kobe said, that's when you can't even put the towel over. But no, I think I feel like this game was very reflective of the style of how risky the style of soccer I feel like Colorado plays, with just how fast paced they are and how they're focused on creating tons of chances. And because of their outside players and because of how um, talented and cohesive they are as a unit, they've been really solid this year as far as creating chances and also limiting chances at the same time, and allowing Jordan Knightis to kind of, work her stuff against, only a couple opportunities a game, though. She's had her work cut out for her in a few performances. Um, but I think, like I said, like this game just shows that they play a risky style of soccer. And as we saw against North Carolina, obviously two quick goals in succession. I'm pretty sure those were two quick crosses into the net to the same girl who scored, she scored the same, it was the same girl who scored both those goals. I forget her name. Um, but when you think back to your biggest losses, both against ranked opponents, and it's just this style of quick goals and this type of fashion, you obviously get worried because you know that teams are going to try and do this, but I guess that's just the weakness in your defense. And hopefully, as Jordan Knightis told me when I went to practice, like this was 3 weeks ago now, I think it was, but she talked about the conversation that they had after the North Carolina game among the captains and how they shared that with the team. And so I think it'll be very important to see how they, it'll be important anyway, but it'll be important to see how they bounce back from this loss, especially with a month left in the season. Because of course, when that North Carolina game happened, that was the second game of the year, and it was, we have the rest of the season left to play. Instead of Danny Sanchez saying, doesn't matter if it's 6-1 or 1-0, it still counts as a loss the same, which indicates that they're just going to move on. Which they kind of need to. You can't let this loss sit on your minds, but you also need to realize that there was a issue that was obviously kind of being exploited. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I have too much more to add. I know they have Texas Tech, right?
Yeah,
Texas Tech and then
you
UCF
see.
back home.
Yeah, so I think it'll be definitely important this weekend for them to have their leaders step up. I believe Shira was out for TCU.
Yeah, she
Um,
was. She had
I,
suffered and she had missed like 2 games, and she got suffered an injury against Baylor in the tie, and then
right.
I don't think she's played since then.
Okay, so I mean, not that that really had an effect because the issue was the defense. I don't know if Shira could have scored 6 goals on her own to bring us back, but uh, I think it'll be important to see if she's back because she that goals aren't all she provides. It's leadership, and I think a team like Colorado that has a lot of youth, that has the Ava Priests and the Labas of the world, um, they need certain leaders on the field like a Juliana Hayward or Jordan Knight is a junior, but still like when you get her in, I don't know about if there's the aspect of rhythm for a goalkeeper. Obviously I don't know if they'd want to get involved as little as possible. But
Yeah, I
when you
mean, I'd
have
assume there's a confidence, when I'm assuming, every shot is kind of like every save, you're like, okay, I'm here. And so I think, when Nidus, has the record or, had the record earlier this year for 538 minutes consecutive without giving up a goal, I feel like she probably feels pretty unstoppable. But then I
yeah.
also do wonder, to some extent, if when you do, stop that many goals and then all of a sudden someone does score on you, how that kind of, shakes your confidence going forward. But anyway, I want to let
Yeah,
you
no,
continue.
I think that's definitely a good point because I mean, I think we'll see like, is it shaking your confidence? Because we'll look at, some of the goals that may slip by in the next few games. And if, she goes back to shutting a Texas Tech TF down, then we're like, oh, okay. She has a good, a really strong mindset. She doesn't let all those goals affect like, hey, was I out of position here? And let me change this up, and then all of a sudden you're out of position somewhere else. So I think for her sake, she would need to at least have a good game against Texas Tech, just that first one, and see if hope and hopefully for her see if it doesn't snowball into, the defense continuing to struggle and her getting in her own head, and then the team as a whole can start to get in their own head and struggle down the stretch, as we did see a little bit last year. As they had a hot start, maybe not as hot, and with like the history with the consecutive goal or consecutive minutes without a goal allow, and Shira's program, all-time program leader goal. Um, but they still had a really hot start last year, but things started to unravel down the stretch. And while they still made the national tournament, it was a struggle that ended up where a fluke made the difference. A complete fluke goal made the big difference. So hopefully they get back on track this weekend. And that's about all I have to mention about soccer. I don't know if you wanted to go into like maybe volleyball. We didn't really talk about them last week.
Yeah, no, I feel bad because like I don't know, between the both of us, we don't, really produce the majority of our we haven't produced really any volleyball coverage, between the two of us. I know Patrick and
Sadly.
some of our freshmen have kind of taken, the brunt of that on. But they got their first Big 12 win, so improved to 1-3 in conference play. Uh
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, there's that. They beat Texas Tech. Um but but yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, kind of just have to see with them, I guess. I mean, they're a young team. Um, just kind of trying to put things together. Obviously some disappointing losses earlier in the year, but yeah, I don't know if there's really, too much more to, add on the volleyball side of things. Just that things are doing better. I just feel bad if you don't necessarily have the coverage.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do think we've had a lot of people that are interested in doing the coverage, though, and thankfully, covering our tails in that aspect. But for the team itself, I think getting that first win and just shedding the kind of ugliness that invaded the last few weeks in terms of just the wins and losses and how the team looked in general. While it was a pretty competitive showing against a really good team in Kansas, that was kind of the first sign of, getting the Big 12 season rolling. It still was just the team needed a win. They needed some confidence back. That so that it's good to see um that occur. And then this weekend, I believe they also play UCF,
Yeah,
and
they were gonna play them this Wednesday, but then due to the weather, they're playing Sunday.
that hurricane is crazy.
It
I've
is.
seen a lot about it.
Yeah. I hope people are staying safe down there.
Yeah, yeah. Best wishes to any of our Floridian Scuba sports uh, fans, and obviously just people in Florida in general.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I don't know. Either way, hopefully, that passes and everything's okay. And, you know, volleyball is kind of the least of the worries down there. But if there's
Yeah,
I don't know, if there's a little upbringing then in some sports, then good, I guess. Um,
definitely.
but yeah, so I don't know. Obviously, yeah, the soccer and volleyball teams, playing them the same day. Uh, but the soccer team in Boulder, volleyball team on the road. So yeah, so moving on from volleyball, hopefully they get back in the win column this weekend, as Harrison mentioned. But women's golf, they've been off this past week. I think they're off this week, and we'll get back in action next week, if I'm not mistaken. But men's golf, they've been doing their thing. Justin Bieber, winner of the Mark Simpson Invitational, and then Jeremy Paul, Colorado alum, he qualified for the PGA Tour. And I know you've been kind of, you haven't necessarily been following them more than I have, but I know you know a little bit more about the details of those events.
Yeah, Paul was an alum from 2013 to 17, and I don't know how many buffs have made it to the PGA Tour in the past, but still, really amazing occasion for the program. And then also on the team side, recently they took down Texas Tech in like kind of a league play tournament they had going on. And then by were winning an individual championship for the Mark Simpson Invitation. So that seems to be doing well. And I remember Rick George, who talked at media availability yesterday, made sure to shout them out and both them and the women's golf teams in, kind of how successful they've been in his opening statement to the media, sort of his state of the athletics address, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know if that's a yearly thing he does, but it was cool to see him kind of go into the business side, the NIL stuff, and I know he went into someone actually asked him about baseball and the prospects of a baseball team. And sadly, that is probably not going to happen for in the near future, at least the way he put it. Um, he seemed to be interested, like he seems to be a baseball guy and a guy that would want a baseball team. But obviously, with Title IX, there need to be two new programs because of softball, and with the lack of a real field right now and the need for that. While Scott Carpenter Park is cool and all, obviously you need a little bit more than that to have a D1 program. Shout out to Scott Carpenter though. I love that place. Um, it doesn't seem like we'll have a team anytime soon, and it was funny because I was watching an old live show from like 1995 yesterday, and they talked about in the live show like these club baseball players are trying to bring varsity baseball back to see or try to bring it to CU, and like I got bad news for him.
But I don't know. And good news for them. Team swept Air Force past weekend.
Mines.
Or Mines. Not Air Force, yeah, no. Air Force put the beating on them the first weekend. But then um yeah, no, School of Mines. They got swept by the Buffs. And first day, the Buffs won the doubleheader by combined score of 15-0. First game was a one-hit shutout.
Well, I wasn't able to make it. It's from everything I heard, Matt Longstreet seems like the ace of this year's pitching staff. I know he's been around a few years, so definitely has familiarity. He was on the team that made one of the few left that was on the team that made the NCBA World Series. And has definitely some pretty good pedigree and finally maybe taking over in the rotation. I know he was kind of in and out of it last year, but great to see the pitching come through on the first day, and the offense in general looked much sharper. Um, and just seemed like all around a really not a whole lot of negative takeaways unless you had them. I know you were there, so you have followed the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, no, I mean the Buffs just looked a lot cleaner from the Air Force weekend. Just all around, I mean, hit the ball better, pitch better, less mistakes in the field and stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Still fall ball. So I guess, there's that. Not sure necessarily how much, you're gonna take away from a weekend to weekend on a weekend to weekend basis. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess just, more so to, bring awareness about the club baseball team and our coverage of it. Just
Yeah,
because I know, me and Harrison specifically like doing the club baseball, but in
I love
general
the
we
team.
have, yeah, no, the team's
And
sick.
Balin, shout out to Balin. He's really taken charge and some of the broadcasts, he's stats and like he's talking about OPS in the recap with Mines, and I'm like, dude, we got OPS now.
Yeah, no, he's
I wish
definitely
that
put
was
in the
every
work.
sport we had all those advanced stuff, all that
Yeah,
advanced.
no,
He's done an awesome job in all phases, but especially baseball. I wanted to give him a shout out on that.
yeah,
For the team itself, they have the weekend off. Thank goodness, because I wouldn't want to have to do a doubleheader on Saturday and then K-State until 3 in the morning. But the week after that, though, will be the Rocky Mountain Showdown this year. So just a two-game series for whatever reason. Pretty sure just a doubleheader on Saturday, which will be 2 Saturdays from now. But should be a whole lot of fun, and you can catch all that on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and of course we have other club sports on SBS. Nick Evans putting in the work per usual. Although I don't think there's hockey, it's just soccer this weekend, right? I
Yeah,
think.
there's no hockey.
So
I think there may be a game or two, but it's on the road. But there is a good amount of club soccer. I know both gold teams for men's and women's are just killing it right now. First in their respective regions. And gold plays Colorado State this weekend, so should be a lot of fun for men.
yeah,
Men's.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it. For episode 5 of the Scuba Sportscast. So I'm Oliver Hayes.
Got you
I'm
more.
Harrison Simeon.
And as always, you heard it here first. Peace.